Haggly ho there, neighbours. Hope everyone's well. I am doing a bit of a late night ramble about. So, here's the thing. I avoided talking about this for a while because I wanted to avoid giving spoilers. I think I've waited long enough. That said, there will be some spoilers in this conversation about Age of Ultron. If you have not seen it, feel free to stop here, come back later. That warning out of the way, I will start talking about some spoilery things. Now, I went to go see it, and it is actually, I really enjoyed the movie. Is it a perfect movie? No. There were some problems with it, some plotting issues, maybe even some pacing issues. There were things that felt a little forced here and there. That said, the pace of the movie overall was pretty good. The character building scenes were amazing. I enjoyed them. The action was everything I expected it to be, and more. But I thought there was some stuff worthy of commentary here. Now, one of the things that stuck out for me watching it was, wow, they really did more with Hawkeye in this movie than they did in the last one. Hawkeye is a fun character. He's an interesting character. He's always been an interesting character in the Marvel Universe. He's one of the few examples of a self-made man in the Marvel Universe. And what I mean by that is Batman is normal for DC. That kind of hero, the hero that's just a guy who's trained really well and, doesn't have anything beyond, maybe being wealthy and some good training. That is not actually the rule in the Marvel Universe. It's actually relatively unusual in the Marvel Universe. Captain America often gets pointed at, but he had the super serum, super soldier serum, to make him the way he is. Iron Man sometimes gets pointed at, but really, his suit is not in any way, on the same level as Batman's utility belt or Green Arrow's, quiver of trick arrows. He has superpowers on par with, Thor and the Hulk and such. They're just embedded in his suit. And that's even become even more so now than it used to be in the comics, because they gave him all kinds of weird nanotech, and we'll get into that another time. That said, Hawkeye, in the comics at least, started as essentially a circus performer who decided, you know what, I'm every bit as cool and badass as Iron Man, and decided to prove it, and he became a superhero. That's really his origin story. He's a guy who's just trained real well, and as a result, he also has a big chip on his shoulder about hanging with all of these really powerful guys who don't seem to need him, but he's still there. And this movie did stuff with that the first one didn't. The first one, he was, mind controlled for most of the film. The times that you see him when he's not mind controlled, he doesn't have a lot to do or say. He gets to fire his bow a few times and does some cool tricks, but this one, they decided to go some interesting places. First, they did make the point of, here's a guy with a bow and arrow fighting an army of killer robots next to some, at least one literal god and people who might as well be gods. Even Black Widow, who is ostensibly a really well-trained human, was conditioned from birth to be an assassin. She is part of a conditioning program from early childhood to be a murderer. I'll get into that in a second. But you never get that impression from Hawkeye. Hawkeye is just a guy with a bow who's really good with his bow, and he still manages to hang with these people, and they still need him. And I kind of love that. But beyond that, they did something with him that they haven't been doing in comics in a long while now. They gave him a stable family life. Having a stable family life has fallen out of vogue in comics. I can only think of one really stable family life kind of situation in comics still sort of running, and that's in Fantastic Four. And that's sort of their cores. They're essentially a family, you know. Reed Richards is, you know, married to Sue Storm, and Johnny Storm's her brother, and Ben is sort of there, but he's kind of like a you know, gruff uncle, and they have kids, and they have a family unit. That's about it. Spider-Man used to be married, they got rid of that. Superman got married, they got rid of that. Superman used to have a family, they got rid of that. I mean, he still has a mom and dad, but for the most part, they got rid of all his family stuff. Elongated Man and his wife were a big thing for a long time, and they killed off his wife in Identity Crisis. And they made another character's longtime relationship go insane during that. There is, in the last decade or so, they have just kind of decided, you know what, having characters that get married and live happily ever after is not good heroing. It is not interesting for superheroes. And I was pleased to see Hawkeye kind of goes the opposite direction there, and it made me happy. It made me smile. I liked the character. I loved the character in the comics, too, and they have some commonalities. Both of them are kind of gruff and grumpy and smartasses, and amazingly brave. But in the comics, he is kind of more of a screw-up when it comes to relationships. He's definitely single. And I'm impressed that they went there. I like that take on the character. I like that they had a take on any character like that and in a major superhero movie, which really you haven't in a while. Now, you know, will they do something terrible to that family in the next Avengers movie? I hope not. I really, really hope not. But, you know, that's certainly within the toolbox of lots of storytellers. But I love the fact that he has a family. He goes home to his family. He tries to be a dad. A normal dad-ish. Normal-ish dad. He, you know, tries to be... And his wife knows what he's doing. He's not keeping it from her. They love her. You know, they love him. They love Natasha, the Black Widow. That's another thing I'm going to get into. So this is a minefield. I'm just going to say this. It's a minefield to go towards. A lot of people didn't like the Hulk-Natasha relationship in this movie. I thought it worked. I thought the rationale for why it worked made sense to me. The reason Natasha feels like a monster and feels like she is broken has nothing to do with the fact that she was made infertile. That became a thing in the movie, and some people went ape shit about that. Well, this means, she thinks she's a monster because she's infertile, and Joss Whedon hates women and blah blah blah. No, that's not the point. The point of that particular scene is that this was done to her to make her better monster. She didn't make a choice to do that. It wasn't a natural thing. Somebody took that from her because they wanted her to be better at being a murderer. And now she's trying to be a hero to make up for the fact that she has been a murderer, that she was conditioned to be a monster, that she was created to be a monster, and she tries to be something else. And she sees in Bruce Banner that same sort of conflict. He was made into a monster, and he doesn't want to be a monster. He wants to be a hero. He wants to do the good thing. And both of them are deeply emotionally unavailable because of that. And they handle it in different ways. He just pushes people away. She does it through her training to be a seducer and what have you. But ultimately, they have very similar problems. And I thought that made their relationship interesting. There were a lot of people who didn't like it. Thought it took away from the story. Different strokes for different folks. But I certainly don't think that the intent was to suggest that she was a monster because she was infertile. I think the point there was she was made to be a monster, and the people who did it did something irreversible to her, took away something from her, and that was part of the reason why she felt it. It wasn't that was the thing. And I really kind of got annoyed with watching some of the commentary online about that. I get Joss Whedon may not be everybody's cup of tea, but he's definitely been a strong advocate for having, strong female characters on television in a time when most people weren't. And now that there are beginning to be more of them, people are saying, well, he doesn't do enough, or he doesn't do it right, or he doesn't carry the ideological flag the right way. I don't know. Obviously, a certain amount of this is not my place. I'm not a filmmaker. I'm male, so apparently that means that I can't have any intelligent conversation on the subject. It bugged me to watch that go on. I thought the relationship worked. The reason I thought it worked has to do with the fact that the characters had some very similar things. And I thought it gave some heart to a story that could have been just pure action. And I liked it. I liked their conflict. And I kind of like how it ended. I kind of wished he'd come back and they'd been a thing, but, whatever. Maybe they'll resolve it in a later movie. They certainly left a lot open there. But yeah, I like the relationship. I know I'm not apparently in the majority or the minority in that there's a lot of split on that particular issue. The action was good. The villain was amazing. Ultron was really odd. Let's be clear there. Really, really odd. And I think that the actor managed to do that very well with his voice. I thought the animators managed to capture actually some of the movements of that actor very well to have him play that. And I thought that was cool. Like some of the head tilts and the way he gestures when he talks and such. Because he's very theatrical, the actor is. He's on the blacklist, and I really enjoy him. I liked all of the bits with Vision, and one of the things that actually did bug me is I felt like the Quicksilver death was unnecessary. I get that you have to establish stakes and such, but it didn't feel like, it felt like there should have been a aha save moment, and there wasn't. And so I kind of was like, but all right, did we just kill him to kill somebody? So that we could feel like we needed somebody had to be killed during this, because that's the only thing I could think of. So that bugged me a little. Not so much that I dislike the movie. I actually want to see the movie again. I want to enjoy some of the bits of it. I like some of the small nods here and there to other Marvel things. I'm looking forward to the next two Avengers films with the Infinity War. The Infinity Gems is they've introduced a number of them, and they've introduced Thanos. It's going to be a big epic thing, and I really want to see that pay off. So I'm looking forward to it. I think that they've overall done a good job of trying to convert that storyline to the cinematic universe. The storyline is very convoluted in the comics, super convoluted. Now, to tie everything back to gaming, because I often need to do that. I think that I think that the notion of Hawkeye's family being a thing definitely works in a gaming context. One of the things that you often lose in a lot of the superhero games, they're often very good at reflecting the powers of a character or even the goals of a character, but it doesn't always reflect the connections of a character very well. There have been a few exceptions, but it's certainly not always the case. And looking at what works in that particular storyline certainly would be something I would want to maybe try and bring into a superhero game. Often in superhero games, it's really a power trip fantasy for people, and that's fine. But I do love this. One of the things I love about the stories in superhero comics is the characters trying to find a balance in their life. So I thought this worked. I think I think that the overall threat was a little silly. I think that the plotting in the middle was kind of weird. But I think overall the movie was good, and I would like to see some of those elements make it into a superhero game. But I'm going to wrap it up now because I'm coming up on 20 minutes. If you like this discussion, like it, if you have a comment, leave me a comment or make a video response. I enjoy watching video responses. Subscribe, share, all the usual things. And I will talk to you later. And stay out of trouble. Don't be a jerk. All right then.